everybody. Welcome, welcome. We're really excited to have you here tonight. We're going to get started in a minute. But in the meantime, if you could introduce yourselves in the chat, we'd love to know who's here, why you're here, where you're zooming in from. Do you represent an organization? Let us know who's here. And then also an early announcement. If you have a question that you're going to want to address during the Q&A, please use the Q&A box. Questions in the chat will probably zoom right by us. But do introduce yourselves to us and each other while we're waiting for everyone to come here. Hi, Lily. Good to see you. Excellent. We're just going to give it another minute for folks coming in. But while we're doing that, I'm just asking everyone to introduce themselves in the chat. Excellent. Wow, we've got Australia in the chat.
That's
Amazing.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's probably the farthest away we've had somebody for one of these,
Hi, Yeva.
actually.
I know her. Yay.
Oh,
I'm
you
so happy
too?
you're here.
Fun.
That's
Callie, that's
great.
awesome. Hi, everyone. Yeah, welcome, welcome. Callie, you've got big fans in the chat. Excellent. Well, I'm going to get
Very
started
cool.
while you're introducing yourselves. Oh, I saw Martha Kemner's here. Amazing. What a great crew we have. I am Jacqueline Friedman. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the founder and executive director of Educate Us, where we are building a movement of sex ed voters. We are building an unstoppable movement to get to universal sex education in this country so we can turn this ship around. Um, but that's a long project. And so we have these monthly Zooms that we call No Means No with the KNOW, so that we can learn things that we need to know to be better advocates for sex education. And tonight we're going to talk about the plot that the Heritage Foundation has for us and what that's looking like in reality and how we can maybe stop it, how we can at least try to stop it. We have incredible special guests here tonight, who I will introduce in a minute. But just a couple rules of the road. The three of us are going to have a conversation for a while, and then we're going to open up to Q&A. I always like to have a lot of time for Q&A. Those of you in here who are my regulars, you know that. If you have questions, make sure to put them in the Q&A box. If you put your questions in the chat, we will probably miss them. We will remind you of that a few times. It's nice if you don't make us. Um, behave yourselves. If you don't behave yourselves, you will suddenly not find yourself in the Zoom. So, that's how it works. This is all being recorded. We put these up on YouTube afterwards. So when you have an incredible time tonight, you can share it with your friends. It'll probably be up later in the week. We're a small team. It takes us a minute. And lastly, we are a small nonprofit. We always have these events for free and they will always be free, but they cost money. So if you're able to give us a donation, if you really appreciate this event tonight, we'd ask you to think about throwing us $10, throwing us $25. Every donation is really appreciated. With that, let us get into it. I have two really special guests here tonight. I have Callie Simon, who's the executive director of SIECUS, who incubated Educate Us. With Educate Us would not exist. And we also have Jessica Valenti, who's my book baby mama. And also the creator and founder of Abortion Every Day, as most people know her now. And it's going to be just an incredible evening with you two. I'm really excited to talk to you. So let's jump in. I'm going to ask you, Jessica, to set the table for us. So, what is this new report called Saving America by Saving the Family? What does it have to do with the current MAGA regime and Project 2025? And sort of like, what are we here to talk about? Just so that everybody's on the same page when we jump in.
Sure. I'm going to try to do my best to be concise because I feel like I could talk about this stupid report for an hour. So to me, it's similar. It's like Project 2026, Project 2027. It's the next, right? It's the next iteration, their next plan of what they want to do, except it is specifically honed in on gender, specifically honed in on young women and girls, and pushing young women and girls out of the public sphere, out of education, pushing them into early marriage, pushing them into early motherhood, trying to get them to have as many babies as possible in a short amount of time. And then all while they're doing that, changing the divorce laws to make it more difficult for them to leave those marriages that they got into when they were, 17, 18, 19 years old. And I say teen for a reason because, the other sort of like framework issue of this report that I think we're seeing sort of bear out in press coverage lately too, and the way the conservatives are speaking in the press, is that there is this like weird focus on teenagers specifically, and wanting teenagers to be pregnant, trying to destigmatize. And we love to destigmatize any sort of pregnancy, right? Like no one wants to stigmatize a pregnancy, teen pregnancy, but they really want to sort of like prop up teen pregnancy and say that so long as a teenager is married, it's okay and maybe even preferable that it's teenagers having children. And we all know why that is, and it is particularly troubling in like the era of the Epstein files, and knowing that the majority of pregnant teenagers have been impregnated by adult men. All of that sort of comes together in this really twisted package that the Heritage Foundation has very kindly, put together for us in a PDF. And so I wrote about this a little while ago. It's not getting nearly enough attention that it should, because they are really explicitly laying out what their plan is and what their plan is for our daughters, for our granddaughters. They are not being shy about it at
I was
all.
gonna say, like, just in case anyone thinks Jessica is exaggerating or reading between lines, like, they're saying this stuff with their whole chest very
Yeah,
specifically. Like, they're saying women shouldn't be going to college because it's making them have babies later. Like, that's in the report.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
when this week the discourse broke about a bunch of conservatives saying, like, oh no, the teen birth rate has been dropping. That's a problem. Everyone was like, what? And I was like, yeah, that's what they've been saying. They put it in print. Like, yeah.
yeah. They put it in print, they put it on a PDF, they put it on a website, and they sent it out to every ally that they have, right? Like they are being really explicit. And as I'm sure we've all said, when someone, tells you who they are, like believe them. We know what they're doing. And I think it just requires a tremendous amount of attention and action and sunlight on
Yeah.
what they're up to.
And I will say, like, the reason I pulled this together and am asking for, especially Jessica's time, is like, well, both Callie and Jessica are very busy people. Was because we tried to blow a whistle about Project 2025 and its implications for sex ed, in 2024, and not enough people were listening then. And I was like, we have to do something as big as possible about this because, yeah, because people just continue to be surprised like Groundhog Day, even though they're telling us out loud. Callie, SIECUS put out an overview report about this document, right?
Yes, we did. And I think we can throw it in the chat in a link. So, I mean, basically, like you all, just horrified to read. I mean, not surprised, honestly, but horrified to read in black and white print this horrible agenda to drive us all back 60 years, attacking in particular young people, right? Just as Jessica said. And so the fact that this agenda centers so clearly on adolescents and youth, on teenage girls. We felt like, as a sex ed organization who's been leading the sex ed fight for 60 years, we had to call attention to it and try to bring some of that like sunlight to this report. So we put out an analysis. You can check it out. It highlights a few of the key, most horrific uh, suggestions for policies that they have in their report, proposals for policies, some of which Jessica mentioned. And then it also kind of goes into more detail about some of the real implications for sex ed in America that are embedded in the report, in some cases extremely explicitly, and in some cases a bit subversively, but it's all over it.
I'm gonna let that be a tease. I want to get into the sex ed stuff a little bit further down the road, but Jessica, you're reporting about abortion every day, as the name says. But in terms of and reproductive justice issues broadly, and like, where are we seeing the stuff that's in this report already happening, whether it's at the
Mm,
federal level or like they're trying it out at the state and local level? Like, what pieces
sure.
of this is already on the move?
So there's so much. The latest Trump budget proposal eliminates the teen pregnancy prevention program, completely rewrites what Title 10, which is the nation's family planning program, would be. And we know that that is a program that a lot of young people rely on to get birth control. I would say also nationally, the focus on crisis pregnancy centers and the way that at the same time this administration and state lawmakers are defunding Planned Parenthood clinics and real reproductive health care clinics, they are claiming that those clinics can be replaced with crisis pregnancy centers, even though they don't provide real medical care. They not only cannot dispense birth control because they're not real healthcare providers, but refuse to even talk about it unless it is to bash it or lie about it. And so, imagine a scenario where the only place a teenager has to go to get, a pregnancy test or an ultrasound or information is a crisis pregnancy center that is going to tell them that birth control is going to give them cancer, right? So that is sort of like the national landscape. On the state level, there's a few things. The ones that I would highlight the most are the Baby Olivia bills, which are these like horrific pieces of legislation that would mandate that public schools show an anti-abortion propaganda video. Specifically, they usually specify in science or health class, and they do that because in sex education, parents can opt out. You can't opt your kid out of science class, and so they're trying to be really sort of devious about that. And then the other thing is the parental rights legislation and parental rights lawsuits around birth control. Like you all know this, and I'm sure lots of people who are on the Zoom know this, but teens are the canary in the coal mine. Republicans always go after teen access first, and so they're doing this sort of like policy thing where they're like, oh, we want parents want to have a say in their kids' care unless they're getting an abortion or unless they're getting gender affirming care. And so we are going to just strip away their right to access birth control without parents knowing. So that's just a taste. There is honestly so much more. But I think what the sort of overarching theme is that they want this whole next generation of young people to not know anything about their bodies, not know anything about sex, not have access to any sort of information, any sort of care. I mean, they're trying to make it illegal to share information or to have a website that shares information about abortion, right? Like South Dakota just passed a law that says advertising abortion pills is illegal, but they defined advertising abortion pills in this really broad way that like maybe my website is illegal in South Dakota. It's this chipping away approach, the same approach that we saw with abortion rights, honestly.
Yeah, and I would even tie it into the attacks on like social media access for teenagers and
Yes.
all the attempts to sort of put a whole bunch of content under the umbrella of like material harmful to minors and then force people to do age verification through like fucking third party folks who are going to obviously like not protect your data. And it's all under the guise of protect the children, right? We saw this with sorry, I'm having a perimenopause moment, but the federal
Always.
bill, what? The federal bill about age blocking material online, but also we're seeing a ton of it at the state level. We're just seeing it here in Massachusetts. Like our supposedly liberal governor just proposed a really draconian social media ban that would actually just give a ton of power to big tech and alienate young kids from teenagers from knowing like information they need about their bodies and their lives. Yes, thank you, Kosa. Thank you.
Yes.
My brain was coming up with Cosa and Sesta Fosta at the same time, which was not the same thing, although it's all related. And yes, I was thinking about Cosa. All right, Callie, I've been leaving you hanging too long. Um, I know you all work on Baby Olivia, so like talk about that, but also talk about success sequencing because I feel like not enough people understand what this term means or where it's from or why it's so insidious. And you guys just dropped a really great report that lays it all out. So talk to us about Baby Olivia and success sequencing.
Yeah, so great lead up. Let me say, I think what Jessica said is absolutely true, which is that the Heritage Foundation and folks in this space, they do not want our young people to learn anything, right? About their bodies, about their choices in life, about sexual orientation and gender identity, about their options and how to kind of grow up healthy and empowered, right? Like they don't want them to learn anything. And so they know that they have to target sex ed to stop that, right? So this is a sort of full frontal attack on sex ed. It is now a battleground on so many different issues that we all care about, right? So it's a battleground on abortion, and that is where some of this baby Olivia stuff comes in, where we have 40 states this year that have introduced a baby Olivia bill or have already passed a baby Olivia bill, which requires that in many states, third graders, like I have a kid, she will be in third grade next year. And if I lived in one of those states, she would be watching a video that is essentially trying to indoctrinate her against abortion before she has even learned about all the other stuff that we teach in sex ed around consent and around bodily autonomy and around sex. And the fact that that is happening is not an accident, right? They are trying to create anti-abortion voters, and they know if they can get kids young, they can grow into anti-abortion voters. And so
I'm
that's
dropping
exactly.
your baby Olivia tracker in the chat right now
Yes,
so that
yes, yes,
people can
yes.
see.
We have a
Yeah.
live tracker. Kudos to the team. I think some of my team members are on this call. I don't know if Noel is, but like huge kudos to the team who track this stuff day in and day out, make it live and available to you. You can see in real time where we've got baby Olivia bills going. Okay, so that's baby Olivia, right? They're attacking, they're using sex ed to attack abortion rights in this country. They are also using sex ed to advance the success sequence. And the success sequence is a major feature in this Heritage Foundation report. It's got a whole chapter, if I'm not mistaken. And but it's been around since the early 2000s. It is a debunked economic theory, right? That essentially says if you uh, graduate high school, get a job, get married, and stay abstinent until marriage, and then have babies, magically you will be economically successful. Like that is what this theory is. Um, and they are trying to teach it to our children as the truth, as the only path in life you can follow. They have already passed laws to require this be taught in 4 states. It was introduced in 4 states more. We expect to see this ballooning over time, just like baby Olivia, where you saw in a few states in one year, and then over time you saw copycat bills. So we expect this to be like a copycat situation in future years. And there's a lot of things wrong with this. There's a lot of things wrong with this. Shall I name a few things that are
Yes,
wrong with this,
please. I feel
Jacqueline?
like I want you to name all the ones you can name, and then I'm going to fill in the ones
Yeah,
that,
like
yeah.
we could just have a little popcorn of all the things wrong with the success sequence and mandating that it be taught to our children as the one true path in life, right? Like we can talk about it. I mean, the first is it's a debunked economic theory. So it actually just is not true. It conflates correlation with causation, right? Like if you are a young person who already has the privilege and means to graduate high school, get a job, wait until marriage to have children, you are already privileged and likely to be economically successful. We actually have no data that shows that those steps in that order cause economic success. And especially no data that shows that as a package they do, right? Like certainly getting a job is helpful to economic success, but not in that order. So the first thing is like, it's not true. The second thing is that they don't actually really mean it for like girls and young women, right? That they don't actually care that girls get education and get a job. They mostly just care about girls getting married and procreating abundantly. So that's kind of the second thing that's wrong with it. And then I'll name another one, and then we can popcorn a little if you want. So I could take a break, but I've got a few more. So the other thing, and this is one that we really care about in the sex ed space, is that they're using it to require abstinence only education because the idea that they're preaching is that if you want to be successful in life, you have to follow this sequence and you have to wait to have sex till marriage. And we've known for decades that abstinence only sex ed just simply doesn't work, right? And it kind of fell out of favor a little bit because we had so much evidence that it didn't work, right? That it doesn't actually help kids delay sexual sex.
But you know
And
what
it,
it does is it encourages them to get married young, right? Because those that are trying to pull it off are like, oh, well, I really want a bone, so like let's get married, which is
That's
like
right.
part of the agenda here.
I
Yeah.
mean, these people aren't stupid.
Yeah.
If their goal, and I think Jessica has said it clearly, like if their goal is actually teenage child, child marriage, let's call it what it is, people under the age of 18 are minors, child
Yep.
marriage in the US and teenage pregnancy with lots of procreation, then trying to preach abstinence until marriage is a good way to achieve that path, right? And so they're trying to sort of hide absence only education in this new success sequencing package to make it seem shiny and new and to make it sort of seem like, oh, well, I want my kid to be successful. So sure, you could teach them that, right? So those are some of the things wrong with it. I have a longer list, but maybe I'll just pause for a second.
Jessica, do you want to jump in?
No, I'm just taking it in.
Yeah.
I'm just taking it in and looking at like your really excellent Baby Olivia tracker. Thank you for doing that. That is so incredibly important, so incredibly helpful to people like me who are trying to keep track of it as best we can, right? Like the inundation is very much the point. They're trying to overwhelm us into just like a frozen stupor because they know that we're dealing with so much in other parts of politics in the world. So that is just an incredibly, helpful and important service that you're providing.
So I could keep dragging success sequencing, but I actually want to make sure we spend some time before we get into the Q&A talking about what we should be doing. One of the major problems that occurred, that one of the reasons Trump is now in the White House is because people did not believe Project 2025 was real. Like they believed it was a document. They might have even believed that like Trump was associated with it, but they didn't believe that he was really going to do it or that the regime would really do all the stuff in Project 2025. That's been very well documented and researched at this point. And so one of the questions I have is like, how do we help people understand that this is real? And maybe it's that we use Project 2025 as a proof point, right? Like, which is one of my recommendations. And then, well, I'll leave that here to see like if you have seen ways to think about ways to make this breakthrough and stick with people who seem to be just have like repeated amnesia, especially when it comes to gender issues.
I mean, I could say something about that. I think that because I think about this a lot with abortion rights as well, right? And
Yeah.
people's limited political attention span at the
Oh,
moment.
they'll never get rid of
They'll
Roe.
never overturn Roe. They'll never ban birth control. Right? Like it's all that shit is already here. That shit is already
Yes.
happening. It is happening right now. I think to me, voters, people, Americans, when they hear about this, when you tell them about this, people are horrified, right? Like we know that the vast majority of Americans are pro-choice, that they're pro-birth control, that they want their kids to like these are not unpopular issues. And I think part of the problem, honestly, is that so much media coverage, especially on a local level, on a state level, treats these issues as if they are controversial, as if this is something these communities are split on. They're not, right? Like this is very popular. And when you have local media framing this as a both sides, and we have the both sides nonsense, it's a real problem. And so I think something that people can do is really hold local media to account, make clear that this is something the vast majority has a very strong opinion on. This is not a controversial issue, and encouraging local news outlets, whether it's like print or TV or whatever it is, when they are interviewing a candidate for whatever it is, whether it's like a school board or a state Supreme Court, right? Like, ask them specific questions. Don't ask them, like, do you believe in birth control? Ask them, do you think that emergency contraception is an abortifacient, like the Trump administration says it is? Do you believe that young people should know about TKTK, right? Like, you have to get really specific because they are using all of these language games to get around saying what they really believe. And I think that there's a real opportunity there to shine some light on this by making people say the thing out loud. This document says this, says that teenagers should get married, says that we should change divorce laws to make it harder for people to leave marriages. What do you think about that? Do you believe that? There is just like a great opportunity that we're not taking at all.
I agree. I want to piggyback on that, and then I'm going to turn to Callie. Two things. One, We have just concluded some polling about the popularity of sex ed and specifically the popularity of trans affirming sex ed that is going to make everybody in this room, I think, super happy. And we'll be releasing that in the next few weeks. It's actually a little mind-boggling how uncontroversial it is. It's the idea that it's controversial is just propaganda. And so that data we hope will be able to help you all debunk if it, for anyone who thinks that it's controversial. Uh, so that is coming. Just as a little tease, we'll be rolling that out for sex ed for all month. And then the other thing I wanted to say, I have already forgotten, so I'm going to turn it over to Callie and see if I can remember what it is.
I'm so glad you mentioned your polling, Jacqueline. I was about to ask you. I was like, I don't know if you have new polling data, but there's great data out there that shows, just like you said, that parents overwhelmingly support comprehensive sex ed. And especially when you break it down, like, do you want your kids to learn about their bodies? Do you want your kids to be able to tell you if they're experiencing sexual abuse, right? Do you want your kids to be more empathetic humans? People want that for their children. It's not controversial, and I think we have to stop treating it like that. And I love that point. I think the other thing I would say in that sex ed specific, and Jacqueline can say more about this too, is that a lot of what gets taught in our schools, for better or for worse, especially around sex ed, is decided at school level or school board level. And all of us, like, sit in school districts. Many of us have children in schools, and we can take action by asking questions about what your kids are learning or what kids in your community are learning. And I think one of the things that's true about sex ed is that a lot of people just aren't paying attention to it. A lot of people care about it. They think it's a good thing, and they're just not paying attention. They're inundated. They assume it's happening. They assume it's fine, and it's not fine. It is not happening. Our kids are being taught junk. And so asking questions and getting involved in your school system or at the school board level is actually it's an easy way to get involved, and it makes a huge difference in what kids learn. Sharing that you want your kid to have comprehensive sex ed, you don't want them to learn the success sequence, you don't want them to watch a Baby Olivia bill, is a really important first step to taking action, I think.
Yeah, and we actually have a tool on our website to help you do that. That AJ, who's our program assistant, is going to drop in the chat probably as soon as they can go pull it off our website. So it's really easy, and we will look up how to email your school board member for you if you fill out this form. All you have to do is fill out the form. We will send our guide to advocating for sex ed for school board members to your school board member and connect you with your school board member if you give us a tiny amount of information. And so thank you, Callie, for teeing that up. You know, all I do all day is talk about school advocating at school boards. Other thing I wanted to say is a thing that I have wanted to make into a formal program, but have not had the capacity to do this yet here, but that I would love for anybody in this room to do and then send us the video, is find out when there are candidate forums up and down the ballot. I don't care what it's a candidate for, dog catcher, maybe not dog catcher, anything that could be remotely argued to have to do with sex education on local, state, or federal level. Go and ask a question about sex education. Go and a specific one to Jessica's point. Like the Heritage Foundation has a report that says this, and we know that good sex education does this, and if you want, I'll write the question for you. Just email me. I'd be happy to set you up with that question. What it does when you go to those candidate forums, you could also do this with your members of Congress when they have local town halls. Press is there, and it introduces the idea both for the candidates, for the people who are watching, and the media that this is an election issue. And like Callie is saying, we don't have a controversy on our hands with sex ed. We have a salience issue where most of the country just doesn't think about it and doesn't know how important it is. So the way to go make it salient is to go do it in public. And there are going to be events all year long, especially in this midterm year, with candidates who have the mic open for people to ask questions. Go ask them specific hard edge questions about sex education. That was the other thing I was going to say when I forgot earlier. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question and then we're going to turn to the Q&A. So definitely start getting your questions in. We have a couple in the queue already. But I guess my question is this. Have you seen particular stuff happening on the local or state level, on the micro level, like sort of what I just suggested? Like, what other things are you seeing that has worked? Also, what are you seeing that people are trying that's not working, that maybe we should not be putting our energy into, right? Like, aside from the sort of big picture, like we've described the big picture, like any cool campaigns that out there that we can think of, that are shining a light on what they're doing.
I'm trying to think of something sex education specific. I
It doesn't
think,
have to be sex ed specific because we can learn tactics from each other.
sure. I mean, I actually think that there's been some good movement on the Baby Olivia bill with like Democratic legislators and advocates, like informing Democratic legislators to make a big deal out of this on the floor to make sure that people know where this video is coming from, because it's coming from, like, for people who don't know, it's coming from Live Action, which is a radical anti-abortion site organization that is known for creating misleading videos. And because they were able to tie it to live action so specifically and remind people that this was from live action, what they started to do with the Baby Olivia videos was keep the term Baby Olivia out of it, right? Like, they're introducing the same legislation, and they're introducing legislation that would require a video that only Baby Olivia could like fit the characteristics of, but they're not using the term. And so to me, that says, okay, that's really successful. Like, tying it to this radical movement works. They don't want people to know that. So that is like a clue for us. All right, like, can we remind folks who these people really are? And I think bringing up the Heritage Foundation is a big one. I think bringing up whatever organization is bringing those bills in really works, because I don't think that a lot of people know. I don't think that your average voter understands that the bill that their legislator is introducing is not a bill that that legislator wrote like up themselves and like came up with, right? That it's coming from big national billionaire backed organizations like Alliance Defending Freedom, making that connection for people, reminding them like this is actually coming from somewhere really nefarious. I think that that makes a big difference.
I agree with that. And I also add that like the regime's approval ratings are in the fucking toilet. So like you can also just tie it to Trump's attacks on sex ed or reproductive freedom or girls having education or whatever piece of this you're taking on. Like just tie it. I mean, it's very easy to tie it to, it's in his budget. He wants to zero out all the funding for it, right? And he was clearly attached to Project 2025. He's enacting their agenda. I think all of that is right. And also like let's take advantage of the fact that a lot of MAGA is looking for the exits right now. And this is a very popular issue even among self-identified conservatives. Self-identified conservatives, majorities of them support sex ed in schools. Like this is not
Yeah,
controversial. It's a wedge issue on the right. Let's drive that wedge while they're fighting with each other.
100%.
Jessica had an idea that maybe want to remind folks that so the new Baby Olivia thing, the other thing that we've seen them do is we've worked with some partners in different states to insert medically accurate into the bill language. So it says it has to be a medically accurate bill or a video, and then you get people to testify that it's not medically accurate. And we actually have some partners who have created a actual medically accurate fetal ultrasound bill that meets the 3-minute requirement. So I think Noel's on the call. Maybe Noel can throw that link in there if people want to use this new better video. Um, but that's been another strategy that I thought was quite creative and good. I think on the success sequencing side, we have to come up with some really creative strategies. I think we're just seeing these bills, right? We've got 4 states that have passed them. We've got 4 more states that have introduced them. It's gonna be a copycat situation. They're gonna scale up. And I think in really tying it back to this conservative radical agenda and saying where it's coming from, right? Saying it's coming from the Heritage Foundation, saying it's part of their agenda, saying that it is trying to bring our girls and young women back to the days of, marriage and babies as the only pathway for them is going to activate people. And I think we need to be clear that that is the agenda that they're trying to push. And, I didn't mention it, but like it's obviously super homophobic, right? When they talk about marriage, it is absolutely just heterosexual marriage they're talking about. And it's racist. Like it's got this whole dog whistle back to like early 90s, like welfare queen stuff. Like it's bad in so many ways. And I think naming some of that and especially highlighting some of the sexist piece of it and the part that takes our girls and women back is going to be a way to address it, learning from some of the Baby Olivia pieces.
And I would say, piggybacking on that, don't wait until success sequencing comes to your state. Go talk to your legislators, whether it's on your school board or especially your state leg and your governor, if you're allies there, if you know who are the right people to talk to there that support sex ed and um, are just not deranged. Go tell them about this now so that the first time they hear from it is from you and they understand where it's coming from so that it doesn't take root before they get to hear the actual truth about it. Go inoculate them about it.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
In terms of success sequencing, has anyone had any luck in going back to this idea of like asking really specific questions, putting candidates on the spot, since they're being so like formulaic or specific about like this is the right way to do things, yada yada yada. Has anyone just asked these legislators, like, do you think that girls should go to college before having children? Do you think that we should prioritize, like really, like, make them
Yeah.
own it?
Yeah, let's get them on the record now.
Yeah,
Do you,
let's
Yeah.
do that.
do you think girls should go to college is a great question to start asking at candidate forums and town halls. Yeah, get them on the record. Bird dog them. If you're somewhere where you know that your legislator is going to be, go ask have one person recording with a camera. Go ask that question, even if they're not at a public event. Yeah, I love that idea. And send us the videos so we can circulate them. I will share them with Jessica and
Send
Callie.
me, yeah,
Yeah.
send me the videos. This is what I've been like asking people to do with do you think that people who have abortions should go to jail? Right? Like because somehow that's become a fucking thing now. Sorry. Um,
Oh my God. I
we need
swear.
them on the record. You
Yeah.
ask your legislator, like, will you promise, will you say right now that you will never support any sort of legislation that allows for any jail time for an abortion patient?
Yeah.
They probably will not say yes, I'm sorry to say.
All right, I want to get to questions from the audience. Lynette has been waiting the longest and wants to talk about how this will widen the racial and socioeconomic disparities in teen pregnancy and STI rates, that this is as much of a health equity issue as a values debate. Discuss. I mean, yes, Lynette.
Yes. Hi, Lynette. Yes, and yes, and yes. Like, I mean, absolutely. It is a health equity issue because I mean, there's so many reasons that's a health equity issue, but one of the reasons is that when we take away comprehensive sex ed and access to health services, affluent, privileged people will always find a way to get it. I mean, I'll be honest, I was actually lecturing at a class at Columbia University on this topic and sex ed in general last week or 2 weeks ago. And they have a program there. It's an amazing program, which helps master's degree students learn to teach sex ed. Great program. And some of those students told me that they are already being hired by affluent New Yorkers to teach their kids private sex ed, right? This is not a surprise because even in places like New York, there's not great sex ed in schools, and affluent families will find a way to get that for their kids. And so we get private sex ed. I'm glad for those kids to have sex ed, but it's going to mean that we are increasing health disparities because the people with less power and privilege will have the hardest time getting access to information and care and services they need. So thank you, Lynette. Yes, yes, and yes.
Yeah, and cutting off TPP funding, just to put to sort of hang a lampshade on that funding, the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program funding, however we might feel about the name of the program, is what is funding a lot of community-based sex ed in this country, organizations that deliver community-based sex ed outside of schools to folks who don't have money to pay for it. So yeah, you put it all together. Jessica, anything that you want to add?
No, I mean, I think you covered it all. I think I would just add the birth control piece and the way that attacks on birth control and birth control access specifically, like we know who that is targeting. We know what communities this is disproportionately harming. I don't think I'm saying anything new there, but I thought it was worth just like,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
also,
Yeah. Um, Nicole wants to know if we have any insights into how PragerU content is infiltrating schools and its impact on sex ed. Who would like to explain what PragerU is to the uninitiated and answer that question?
not me.
Is it
I'll
going to
be
be me?
too, it's gonna be
Okay, here's PragerU in a nutshell. It's a right-wing propaganda machine for children, is basically what it is. It's like these cartoon videos. Some of them are about like how enslaved people actually liked being enslaved and like uh It's like everything you think it is. It's like a private organ. It's not a university. It's a private company that makes propaganda, like incredibly right-wing propaganda that was for a while just available on the internet, but now is actually being adopted as curriculum in many schools, in a shocking number of schools. And yes, the curriculum for sex ed is what you think, which is I never call abstinence education sex education. It's not. I call it abstinence propaganda, right? So there is no sex ed videos that PragerU has, right? Like they have abstinence propaganda, and all of their videos are suffused with like really retrograde gender norms, which given I just want to like take a moment to acknowledge like the moment we're having this conversation in. All of this agenda is happening at the same time as we saw two members of Congress resign last week for being perpetrators of sexual violence, sexual harassers. I don't want to get sued, but there are at least strong allegations of that, credible allegations, right? We saw another former legislator kill himself and his wife. And then we're also seeing like there's so much femicide in the news right now, honestly, and sexual violence, and that was on top of the Epstein files. So like one of the things that this is a little bit of a tangent, but I just have to go, like, that we have to see is like the connections between uh, gender-based attacks and the control of gender and democracy. And this is a project, you know, we called this event like the coming Tradwife plot because they want to force all women to be tradwives. I I was tempted originally to say something about The Handmaid's Tale. But the reality is that the criticism of sort of comparing everything to The Handmaid's Tale is correct, which is Atwood didn't make up those tropes, right? Like Atwood took those tropes from things that were already being done to women around the world, mostly Black and brown women and indigenous women, right? Um, and fascism and authoritarianism and high control regimes always require control of gender and reproduction. So this is a core feature of authoritarianism, which means fighting it is a core feature of fighting for democracy. And if any of you can convince a funder about that, so that would be fantastic. Um, because the people who fund democracy and civil society stuff, I have not persuaded any of them that that's the work that we are doing. But it is. It's the work that we are all discussing right now. We do not have a free civil society if we do not address these issues. We don't have a free civil society if we don't have reproductive justice and if we don't have sex education for all. And that is my soapbox. That started with PragerU. But yeah, it's real bad. Allison Harvey has sent us a series of increasingly alarmed messages about how bad things are because she has moved to London, where things are not great, but are certainly better for sex ed. So is fake news so prevalent in the US school system? Parents asking questions. Yeah, yeah.
I think this actually relates to the what you were just saying too, Jacqueline, about PragerU. Like we can't overlook there's the policy piece and what they're doing at the state and national level, and then there's the cultural piece. And the cultural piece is so incredibly insidious and so incredibly well funded, right? Like for this plan to get young women into marriage and early motherhood and get them out of the public sphere, they are counting on a certain amount of buy-in. They are putting a lot of money to get that cultural buy-in, not just from young men and this like extremist right-wing pipeline there, but buy-in from young women with this tradwife nonsense that we're seeing. And I cannot stress enough, they're spending like some of like the biggest billionaires behind this movement. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to like one organization to target young women. Kylie Chung, who's a reporter at Abortion Every Day, wrote a terrific piece about the way, for example, that celebrity news has become a pipeline, a right wing pipeline for young women, where you will, see something on Instagram about some celebrity, and actually it's coming from Evie Magazine, which is an anti-birth control rag funded by Peter Thiel. And so the amount of nonsense that is going on social media can't be discounted. We need a proactive measure to fight back there too, right? That is not just all defensive. That is not just like, oh, well, tell your kids about social media or like tell them not to trust this. Like, no, we need something a lot more proactive. We need to be a lot more on top of it and to be demanding that, I think, from legislators, funders, the people who care about this issue, the people who care about democracy. I think especially, and then I'll get off my soapbox. Democrats count on young women's votes. Democrats count on young women's votes, and they think that young women's votes are always going to be there. There is a reason that these groups are honing in so specifically on young women and young women's votes because they think that they can get some leeway there. They think that they can break that really, incredible voter stronghold. They think that they can break it away from Democrats, and we shouldn't be taking that for granted.
And for folks who are interested in what Jessica was talking about, we did a No Means No session on this last summer, called Radicalization of Young Women. I think it was July. Hey, Jake, can you drop the link to that in the chat? Because this looks a lot of ways that don't just get called Tradwife. It has to do with soft life and like there's a lot of code words and stuff that's making it seem really appealing. So a lot of bullshit about like how big pharma is out to hurt you with birth control and like it's they're good at it. Like they're winning the narrative war on social media right now. And that is something that we're certainly looking into how to intervene on, but that a lot more people than us need to be working on that.
Yeah.
Callie, do you have a soapbox you want to get on?
No, I won't get my soapbox. I will mention two things. One is I'm going to ask Mari Kempner, who's on the call, if she can drop a link into the chat because I can't do it about from the Persistent Lies video series that we came up with and that she helped work on with for SIECUS, which just it is one video series that is trying to show exactly how insidious the sort of social media universe is in trying to undermine, in this particular case, birth control and contraception for young people. But there is a lot out there. And I guess I want to ask a question, which is I do feel a little bit like, how do we counter that online narrative, right? Because as you said, Jessica, it's so well funded and it is so subversive. They are embedding these messages around basically being a tradwife and anti-contraception and anti-sex ed and anti all these things into all facets of online life. And, we are all working for or with very small nonprofits, right? And what we are doing is kind of drops in the bucket. And I would love like creative energy on this call. How do we counter those narratives in a meaningful way, given the funding on the other side?
I mean, I think that there's a couple of different things. I think first and foremost, like I do think that like every time someone has a meeting with a funder, they need to be like, yo, sorry, someone needs to be putting hundreds of millions of dollars into this, right? Like I could say, oh, go and educate a content creator and go do this. That is not going to make a difference against like Turning Point USA's like ridiculous stronghold on the culture. We just do need the people who have money to get their shit together, put a tremendous amount of money into this. And I think one of the things that the right does so well with this particular issue is that they are not, when they give these content creators money, they're not saying, and here's your list of talking points and stick to them closely because we're only going to give you money if you stick to these specific talking points. They trust that the relationship that these creators have with their audience, they trust that relationship and they know they're like, here's our general vibe. Here's what we want you to relay to your audience. And we trust that you're going to say it in whatever way is going to resonate with your audience best. And that's what they do. They throw shit at the wall and they see what sticks and then they keep funding that thing. And so part of it, I think, is just massive amounts of funding. That said, I do think that the leg up that we have is the popularity of our issue and how people really are not, but women don't want to be trad wives. People don't it's just not popular, right? Like it's everywhere. It's popular in as much as like the content is everywhere, but there is not a lot of buy-in, at least not yet. And so there is room for interventions. Like I have seen, like if I make a video about something that is trad wife related, like it can kick off. People are looking for leadership on this. They're looking for language on it. They want to know how to respond to it. And so if, as people who do this work, who know a little something about these issues, if we can get that information out there so that the people who are consuming this media also see that and have language of their own. Anyone who's ever like seen me talk knows I say like I don't think I'm preaching to the choir, I'm arming the choir, right? Like we need to
Yeah,
arm all of those people with the information that they need, the language that they need to go out and do it themselves, because our like mass appeal is what is going to save us.
I agree. I do want to lift up that there's some great stuff getting shared in the chat. There's a great article that I don't know if it's great, I haven't read it yet, but there's an article about the misogyny slop ecosystem that Kristen shared. Uh, Adana Wright says maybe leaning outside of white capitalist girl boss rhetoric that feels very exhausting and in a time many people are calling for economic justice. I completely agree. And then Maya is plugging Advocates for Youth Busybodies Club as a youth-oriented socials campaign combating exactly this mis and disinformation, which I'm gonna check out tomorrow. Let's be honest, I'm going to sleep after this, but I'm gonna check out imminently. Um, Callie, did I see that you wanted to say something? Okay.
No, you're good.
I want to say something real quick
Yeah.
to the girl like white capitalist girl boss stuff. Yes, yes, and yes, and conservatives are doing that, right? Like conservatives see that like people are turned off by that, and they're saying, "Oh, you don't want to be girl bosses, right?" Like they understand that young people don't have money or like disillusioned. They don't want to go work like a shitty soulless job, and that is what the Tradwife messaging is speaking to. They are offering a very seductive alternative that says you don't have to be a part, and they'll use like feminist sounding language about like opting out of consumer culture, opting out of like patriarchal norms, right? Like they are very good at that. They understand that that is not an attractive message anymore for young people. And so 100% agree.
Yeah, I agree. And the good bad news is the economy is in the fucking toilet. So the conservatives are losing the economic argument right now. And if we are able to turn the economy around, women will be less susceptible to that argument. So like literally turning the shit around for this country for the economy is also going to make it always makes things better for women and girls and trans people and queer people and uh everybody who's marginalized. Martha Kemner has something out coming out on Sex on Wednesday about this tomorrow. Yes, yeah, young women don't want to be trad wives. They do want to answer sneakily phrased Fox News questions. I look forward to reading that. I have a couple more things in the chat that I want to lift up. Can you help us understand how to think and talk about to others about opposing social media bans for kids when we, of course, want kids to be protected, but have concerns about age verification and the implications for limiting access to health information like abortion info? I would say the best person I've seen doing this is Evan Greer, who is all over socials, who is at Fight for the Future. And literally just today, I saw posted like a song targeting Maura Healey, who's our governor's like new social media bullshit proposal, to the tune of a Brandy Carlisle song. So like Evan does it and has fun with it. Like Evan is a great model for that. Nancy Warren. The answer is in relationships that local champions have with decision makers. I could not agree more. That's why that's what we focus on here at Educate Us, is helping folks like you have better relationships with the decision makers in your communities. And if you have stuff happening in your communities you want help with thinking about how to make those relationships, we are here for you. That's literally what we do all day. They have money and we have people. That's what I always say. So the answer is we are not going to ever be able to outspend them. We're not. We're not going to be able to outspend them. We have to outpeople them. We have to outrelationship them. Because they don't know how to have relationships, let's be honest, right? So Nancy, I'm really glad. That's actually a great place to start wrapping that up because that is absolutely the answer. We're never going to outmoney them. We have to outpeople them. Um, be human with each other, talk to each other. Um, yeah, develop real relationships. Jessica and Callie, you have any last thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I just want to say thank you for, hosting the conversation and, just shooting so many ideas around. I think it is just a welcome change for me, at least, to be having like a proactive conversation. And I'm just really grateful for the work that both of you are doing. And to both of you and to anyone who's in the chat who's also doing this work, um, part of what I'm trying to do at the newsletter is like make information like this and make work like this accessible to as many people as possible, and to use the newsletter's platform, which is amazing and growing, to prop up like the incredible work that you all are doing. So please consider this an open invitation to email me at jessica at abortioneveryday.com if there's something that you think I should be writing about, or like an amazing report that you have put out about baby Olivia, whatever it is. It may take me a minute to get back to you, but I will get back to you, and anything that I can do to help, please just let me know.
Yeah, and that's Abortion Every Day, and I think that AJ can drop that link in the chat as well. Callie?
Yeah, no, I was going to say the same, which is to thank you both for being here. Thanks, Jacqueline, for pulling this together. And Jessica, I think, many of us are huge fans of your work. And one of the reasons is because you do bring together so many of these threads that impact people in America today. And it's not, it connects the dots, right, between abortion and sex ed and this crazy Heritage Foundation report. And I think one of the things that we think a lot about at SIECUS, and I know many of you do too, is that comprehensive sex ed, right, is this very truly intersectional upstream issue that has so many impacts down the road. And the conservatives know that too, and that's why they're fighting against it. And so
Yep.
we have to out people them and outpower them and be clear that this is an intervention and a program and an approach that people care about and that can make the difference in the lives of a lot of young people. So I'm excited to be here talking with you all about it, and thank you for pulling it together.
Amen. And again, I'll say this is free and will always be free, but if you appreciated it and have $10 or $25 to send our way, AJ's going to drop that donate link in the chat. Every little thing matters. We are a small nonprofit trying to make a big impact. I will also say, if you are all on our email list now, and you'll get an email on Thursday about our next event, which is going to be with Red Wine and Blue, and we'll be talking about some of those poll numbers as well as actions you can take for Sex Ed for All Month in May. So look out for that information. And actually, I think AJ May has a preview registration drop for that in the chat as well. So we really appreciate being here with you. Also, we'll let you know when it's up on YouTube, but you can go to YouTube and look up Educate Us and subscribe to us, and you'll see when this video is up. And please share it with everybody, because we have to outpeople them. And one of the ways we outpeople them is if you can share this conversation with as many people as possible. So appreciate everyone here, everything you do, taking an hour out of what I know is a very busy evening and day to have a really important conversation. Let's go kick some butt. Bye, everyone.